the Rural Radio Network. May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and the Nebraska Cancer Coalition is working to educate Nebraskans on the importance of skin cancer prevention. We're joined today by Dr. Joshua Mammen, NC2 board member and physician, and chief of Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, who is a surgical oncologist that focuses on skin cancer, specifically melanoma. So melanoma of the skin is the most dangerous skin cancer and is the fifth most common cancer in Nebraska. So, Dr. Mammen, what are some of the risk factors that put people at a higher risk for developing skin cancer?
Thank you, Ellen, for having me on the show and helping to spread awareness of this issue. As you mentioned, melanoma is the fifth most common cancer of those cancers that are recorded in databases. But actually, believe it or not, skin cancer is by far the most common cancer, period, more than all the other cancers combined. If you really include the skin cancers that are squamous cell cancers and basal cell cancers as well. So it's actually quite a major problem. And I think all of us know individuals who've had skin cancer in the past. They often are treated, thankfully, with smaller procedures like salves, or sometimes by burning them off, or sometimes by local excisions. But melanoma, as you mentioned, is a more serious condition, and certainly something that often requires more serious interventions and extensive interventions to treat it. There are certainly risk factors for developing skin cancers, and some of these are risk factors that we can control, and some of them are risk factors that we can't control. The ones that we can't control are our complexion. We certainly know that individuals with fairer skin, of lighter complexion, are at a higher risk of developing skin cancers, including developing melanoma. There certainly are the risks of for individuals who have a lot of moles. Those individuals tend to be at a higher risk of developing skin cancers as well. And a family history of having had melanoma increases the risk of developing melanoma for oneself as well. Those are obviously non-modifiable risk factors. There's nothing much you can do about that. But there are things that you can do to reduce your risk of developing melanoma and other skin cancers. We know that skin cancers, by and large, develop from ultraviolet light, and so avoiding or minimizing ultraviolet light is part of the strategy for reducing your risk of developing skin cancer. Now, what I tell folks is they have to live their lives. You can't avoid all ultraviolet light, but you want to be careful in how you are exposed to ultraviolet light and do the things that you can do. We certainly want you to be able to enjoy yourself, and especially now that the weather is a little bit nicer, to be able to go out and do these activities that we all enjoy doing outside. But there are some common sense tips that we can do and implement to help reduce the risk of developing skin cancer. One is avoiding the sun when it's at its most intense. It's really somewhere around, 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock is where there's the most intense sunlight. Perhaps you take a break. Often in the middle of the summer, it's pretty hot out there at that time anyway. So maybe that is a good time to maybe take a break from the activity that you're planning. Other tips are covering up as much as you can. A hat protects the ears. Ears are often a place where individuals get burned because you often forget to put sunblock in that location. So hats that cover the ears in particular, not just a baseball cap, but maybe a little bit larger hat would be helpful. And then, as I alluded to, sunblock. And there's a lot of discussion about sunblock and the ingredients in sunblock that I've heard about. But there are a lot of sunblocks that are made from ingredients that are certainly safe, avoiding the benzene-containing sunblocks, perhaps. So there's a lot of sunblocks that are out there that are actually quite safe and can be used. If you don't like sunblock, another option is there is a lot of lightweight clothing that you can use that has ultraviolet coating on it that also can be used instead of sunblock. What I would say is that if you do use sunblock and you're sweating, or you get into the pool or into the lake, certainly you want to reapply. They are somewhat waterproof, but not 100%. So reapplying is really important as well.
All right. Well, let's talk about why early detection of skin cancer is so important, and what are your recommendations for screening?
Yeah, so interestingly, there is no standard recommendation for screening, unlike for breast cancer, where we know that there are standard guidelines for getting a mammogram, or for colon cancer, or getting a colonoscopy, or getting a stool-based test. there isn't a standard guideline that we have for skin cancer screening. But what I would say is that if you have a lot of moles, and certainly if you notice spots that are changing or are starting to look a little unusual, I think it's really quite important to see a dermatologist as quickly as you can to be evaluated. I would say this is more akin to not screening, but skin awareness. So being aware of your skin and aware of what's going on your body, I think is really the key here. Is if you notice something is starting to look different or starting to change or is unusual, certainly I think that's an opportunity to bring it to the attention of your primary care physician and ultimately of a dermatologist to be evaluated.
And that was kind of my next question. Where a lot of people, when they think of a dermatologist, they're thinking, "Oh, wow, I won't be able to get into them for another 6 weeks." So where your primary care provider, would that be the best option going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I think our primary care colleagues are the front lines. Really, they have a relationship with you already, and I think having them evaluate that area first is a great first step. Often they'll need a dermatologist to also be involved, but I certainly think that seeing a primary care physician as a first step makes a lot of sense. And they may have noticed that spot in the past and be able to say, "Oh yeah, I noticed it," and it looks the same as it did last time, or I'm not worried about it. So they can often provide that reassurance as well.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I think, again, awareness is really the key here. I also mentioned earlier that though there is no standard guideline, if you have family members who have had skin cancers, particularly if they've had melanoma, I think it's probably a good idea to go to a dermatologist to at least have a one-time check to have your skin evaluated because there's certainly individuals who have family histories of melanoma have a dramatically higher risk of melanoma themselves. So that would be, I would say, kind of the maybe not in the guidelines, but probably a good idea to at least get that one-time check.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you want to find more information out, you can go to anycancer.org/skin cancer. Thank you so much, Dr. Mammen, for joining us.
Great. Thanks for having me, Ellen.
All right. That is Dr. Joshua Mammen, NC2 board member and physician and chief of Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center. May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and the Nebraska Cancer Coalition is working to educate Nebraskans on the importance of skin cancer prevention. I'm Ellen Simmons for the Rural Radio Network.